We have a little over 55 airports in this state, and they're scattered pretty well across the state, particularly here in western Kentucky. We have a fair number of them. Now, the red aircraft indicate runways are at least 5,000 feet in length. The blue are 4,000 to 49.99, and the black are under 4,000 feet. The critical length of a runway in this day and time is 5,500 feet, of which I know personally because I started on the Henderson County Air Board for 12 years. That was extended several years ago by the wise decision of fiscal court in the city to do that. Reason why that's important, yeah, you can land corporate jets on less than that, but most corporate jets insurance carrier will not cover it. So if you land on a runway that's like 4,500 feet with a Learjet, and you plow that baby into a tree at the end of the runway, you pay for it. So they sort of steer away from doing that type of thing. 5,500 feet is sort of a magic number. You get back home, you might want to check to see how long your runway is. By the way, Owensboro, Kentucky, if you eliminate Cincinnati, Greater Cincinnati Airport, Owensboro has the second longest runway in the state. Only Stanford and Louisville. Let me just give you a quick few figures here. Here in Owensboro, your runway is over 8,000 feet long. It's 150 feet wide. Lexington, for example, is only 7,000 feet long. Paducah, 6,500. Bowling Green, 6,500. Madisonville, a little over 6,000. And you know, they've got enough runway here, and I know there's a few projects going on for what we call navigational aids that will, you know, make really any size aircraft, including the president's plane, could easily land here in Owensboro. Here's the mission of our department. We operate in the cabinet of transportation. We're one of the smallest agencies. We only have 31 folks, and we have people there that are two pilots, one multi-year twin-engine pilots, and one is a helicopter pilot. You'll see here in a second what these folks do in their duties. We also have folks who do a lot of planning. We have a professional planner and engineer by the name of John Houlihan. Some of you may have talked with John. And he is the staff person for the Kentucky Airport Zoning Commission. But basically, we have two divisions. We have a Capital City Airport Division, which in itself tells you they run the Capital City Airport. Pump fuel, move planes around. We do all the maintenance there too, of all the state aircrafts, including the governor's King Air. I remind you that's the same airplane that Army Fletcher came so close to being shot down in Washington, D.C. several years ago. They got that part fixed, by the way, the very next day. So we have the Capital City Airport Division, we have the Greater Commonwealth, and you'll see here what these folks do. Now, the zoning board, if you're going to put up any kind of building, I don't care how tall or how small it is, in or on an airport property, you must get a permit from those folks. They meet about every 90 days. They're appointed by the governor, and quite honestly, they're hands-off. I couldn't even name you one of the members of it. I've been to one meeting, and John Houlihan, who I mentioned a few seconds ago, he is their executive staff person. But John works through the Department of Aviation. Commonwealth Division pretty much tells you exactly what we do. Involved, we have two professional engineers on staff, headed up by Craig Farmer, brilliant guy. He can answer any question about, you're thinking about extending the runway, what's going to be the cost of this, to move these trees, move this ground, and so forth. He has enormous experience with that. And as I told you a few seconds ago, the Capital City Division runs the airport, but down at the bottom we have about, you know how you divide them up, about 7 to 9 aircraft. In our own department, we have 5 fixed-wing aircraft and 2 helicopters. But we maintain all those helicopters, including the state police and the governor's plane. Here are the typical type of missions that our department goes on. In the fall, there's a lot of use of a small aircraft for observing for wildfires around the state. Fish and Wildlife calls us in quite frequently. State police uses us a great deal. Here's some of the airport projects that happened just 2007 here in western Kentucky. I'll give you a second to find yours if it's up there. Right now, Kentucky Dam is closed. Do you have any pilots in this room? Once again, Bill, I'm alone here. You only get 18% of the vote, you feel like you're Bill voted for me, I think. asked the staff just yesterday to print out some data that applies to the ag district. Now, the only one you don't see up there is McLean County. And why is that? McLean County doesn't have an airport. Okay? Now, that's the amount of money that has been spent in the last 10 years on your airport. Here in Owensboro, for example, it helped to have a fellow who's a United States Senator who lives in your hometown. $21 million. Every time there was always some project going on here at the Davis County Airport. I love that expression. I wish that there were more people statewide that understands what aviation means to economic development of their town. One of the greatest things that, I can only speak of Henderson County, because I was involved in it, was about a $1.4 million terminal building. It was built around 2005. It has made an enormous difference, and you'll see it just a slide here in just a second. This is basically the infrastructure at airports and heliports across the state. Notice under heliports, estimated 143. That slide probably now say 155. It's the fastest growing area of aviation in the United States. Emergency evacuation helicopters, you see them on interstate roads, taking people from serious automobile accidents and so forth. The thing about the 143 heliports, if you have a helicopter, and a lot of guys and gals buy and you get a lot of good product out there at a cheap price now because of the economy, they'll buy a helicopter and they'll clear off a place in their backyard on their farm and call that a heliport, put up a wind sign. Well, you got to notify us. You've got to have that facility licensed. Not so much that we're concerned about you, we're concerned about some of your friends who may want to come into your heliport and bump into a tree. I don't have to go much further than that. That's also one of my favorites. I don't know who made that statement, but it is so true. Many times, corporate America will fly into the Henderson Airport. I've seen it happen. They never identify who they are. They're not picked up with a local economic development guy. They'll have somebody there that you've never seen before, in a car that you've never seen before, and they'll drive around the county, look at 2 or 3 sites, and within 2 or 3 hours, they're out of there. It is so important that your airport make a positive statement about how it looks. Because many times, that's the only look at your community they have. They don't go downtown and buy a pair of shoes. Okay? When I became mayor, that airport in Henderson was horrible. We were on a septic tank, and the toilets would back up quite frequently. Now, what kind of statement would that make to the president of a major corporation who's going to dump $50 million? You know, chances are they'll move across to Evansville. This is an interesting story right here. It happened in the summer of 2006. There are very few really fine avionics shops in America. We're fortunate in this area, if people own aircraft or if they fly aircraft, to have a firm like Ron Collins Aviation Electronics. For over 30 years, Ron Collins operated that business out of Dress Regional Airport. In 2006, after the big election, I was walking across the hangar over at Evansville after having some of my radio equipment worked on. And one of the men that was working for Ron, he and 4 or 5 others got together and buy Ron out. And at the same time, Mayor, their lease was up there at Evansville. And they said, "Do you think Henderson would like to have us?" I said, "What are you talking about?" I pick up the phone and call the EDC guy, called Dick Wam, who was chairman of the airport at that time, and then one thing fell into place, and now they're located in Henderson. They deal in installation of radar and radios, storm scopes, and Garmin GPS systems, and the list just goes on and on. Their people are very highly skilled people, as you would imagine. They all have to be government certified. Their salary is probably $75,000 to $80,000 each, okay? And they charge accordingly, I might say. But to land a business like that in Henderson, Kentucky, nowhere else in the state do you find that. They do business from Canada to Florida, from the East Coast all the way out to Kansas City. People will fly jets in here, twins, prop jets, have aviation electronic work done. I understand there's another business that's going to relocate to the Henderson Airport, or is in the process of doing that now. And of course, economic development, that's what this whole thing is about. Transportation usually leads to all that. If you got good roads, you got rail, you got river, and you've got a good, solid airport facility. All that leads to better jobs, leads to better businesses, high-paying jobs, leads to people staying at home when they graduate or come back to home. And aviation is a big, big part of that formula. Here's the study was done to our neighbors over in Virginia a year ago. Look at some of the figures on that. At the bottom, many visitors arriving by air spend about $70 per day in a geographical area. Just, I mean, it's incredible fuel. It's nothing for a jet airplane. Put on $3,000 worth of fuel. Can you imagine driving in and say, fill it up? That'll be $3,000. I mean, if you fly a Gulfstream, it'll probably be twice that much. But Henderson's large enough that it can handle a Gulfstream. It's about a $50 million airplane. Look at the figures. This was an article that was in the State Journal, the Frankfurt newspaper, this past summer. Economic impact of general aviation is $1.7 billion, which translates to $426 per capita to Kentucky's economy. Don't just think of your airport as that little old thing out on the edge of the county. The little old thing is the way that corporate America is going to come visit you. They say they're not going to drive on a Greyhound. Okay? Those of you who like asphalt, don't ever forget the importance of your airport.